Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and remember when he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with two other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's Gilbert? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
This is GTF. My name is Aldo Gandia. Welcome to the show. Quick programming notes. Tomorrow, Bare Their Souls will be on immediately after Hard Knocks. I think that's the last episode. So, and Wednesday, Buffon 55 will preview the upcoming game with the Tennessee Titans. And then after that, those two shows are going to flip-flop. Phone 55 will be on Tuesdays, and Bare Their Souls will be on Wednesday. And we've got tons of other programming, including the debut of the Mike North Advantage. He's debuting on this Wednesday, but regularly he will follow Greg Gabriel here on the Bar Room Network. And Mac and Reed is back. The Willis twins are back. We got a lot of stuff happening. But the biggest thing we have happening right now is the appearance of this gentleman dressed in green. What's going on with the shirt? Somebody didn't do laundry?
Hey, it was the closest thing available to throw on.
There you go. It looks good on you. Are you celebrating Notre Dame's victory yesterday? Was it yesterday? It was 2 days
Saturday. Ago? Yeah, it was a good game. I didn't have a good feeling about that game for Notre Dame. Tough place to play. Now, I've been there probably about 5 or 6 times for games. Used to be, now this goes back a little bit, Texas and Texas A&M used to always play Thanksgiving weekend, sometimes Thanksgiving night. And when I was a young scout, being that I was a young scout and low man on the totem pole, guess who got that game on Thanksgiving night? But I had it one time at Texas and the following year at Texas A&M. But great place to visit, but a tough place to play. Now, the last time I was there, it wasn't as big as it is now. Hell, I think it was probably 75, 80,000 the last time I was there. Now it's 105 or 106, something like that. It's a huge stadium.
Yeah, and they've got a favorable schedule the rest of the way. So they, if they don't screw this up, they should be in the playoff. That 12-team playoff that the NCAA is debuting this season. So that should be.
Yeah, you got in their situation. Yeah, they got to really screw it up not to get in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, have some just horrendous games. One thing that I don't like, I get it, but I don't necessarily like about the playoff system is. For a school like Notre Dame, and they're really the only ones, they're not in a conference, so they can't get a bye in the and they could be the number 1 ranked team in the nation, just hypothetically,
right? And
they still don't get a bye because they're and I think ranking should have something to do with that. But it is what it is. I think they'll probably end up in a conference before too long. within the next few years. It's just the way things are happening in college football now.
Yeah. Hey, this weekend I saw, actually for the second time, a 30 for 30 called Catholics versus Convicts. Did you ever see that ESPN documentary?
I did a while ago. Wasn't it Catholics versus Convicts or something like that?
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was done. Yeah. That was done when Jimmy Johnson was the head coach of the University of Miami. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And Jimmy has some great teams at Miami. And they used to have a lot of swagger now.
Yeah.
So, and at the time, Notre Dame and Miami had a rivalry series going. They were playing each other just about every year.
That's right. And they ended up pulling the series because the intensity, the tempers were flaring so much between fans and stuff. They said this probably is not a good idea to continue the series. But the documentary as a whole is really well done. It talks about the origin of that Catholics versus Convicts. It was T-shirts that were being sold by somebody who was trying to make a Notre Dame basketball team, and he ends up being kicked out because they told him, no, don't sell those T-shirts on campus. But nonetheless, it was a great show.
Yeah, now they'd be perfectly fine with NIL.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Before we get started with our Bears talk, I wanted to ask you, it seems like you got a problem with DirectTV, Greg. What's going on?
Just a little one. I'll tell you what now. I have had DirectTV since 1994. So when they first got Sunday Ticket, so I was working for the Giants then, wanted to be able to get all the Giant games. So I got DirectTV, subscribed to Sunday Ticket, had it every year, Sunday Ticket every year up through last year. And then they didn't have it for the 23 season. They lost it after 22. I probably should have dumped DirectTV after that. The problem is that not only do I have to dump the DirectTV, I have to dump the internet because I got the internet packaged with it. Right. So now, that pissed me off so much yesterday. It's not like they gave you a warning. All of a sudden, it's 20 minutes before kickoff of the LSU USC game, and they pull the plug.
Because of their fight with Disney.
Right. And I don't care who's right or who's wrong. DirectTV is the provider. So regardless of who's being greedy, who wants more money, who wants less money, whatever, DirectTV is the person at fault as far as I'm concerned. And I guarantee you, I'm not the only one who canceled. Now, I haven't officially canceled yet. I have already subscribed to a new service, both internet and TV, but they can't install it till Saturday. So I got them coming like at 8 o'clock Saturday morning so I can, the first games start at 11. I mean, my job relies on me watching football. So
yeah, exactly.
It'll be in for that. But there's some Friday night football games this week. I won't see those unless DirectTV and Disney come into some sort of favorable solution. But I have a feeling this one might go on a little while. And I also think that, I didn't realize this. How about this? DirectTV used to have like 22 million subscribers. They dropped down to like 9.5 to 10 million after they lost Sunday Ticket. I guarantee you, after that stunt they pulled yesterday, they'll lose another 5 million.
Absolutely. New world of watching football. You got to pay for stuff. You got to have internet. It's all a mess. Give me back the old days where I could just tune into CBS, NBC, and then on Monday Night Football, ABC. It was so simple back then. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, but unless you don't even get ABC. It's not just ESPN. It's ABC. Put it this way. If the grandkids are over, they can't watch the Disney Channel.
They can't watch
all,
the Disney Channel.
Any Disney-owned channel is off DirectTV right now.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. All right, let's talk Chicago Bears. This is the week it all starts week 1 of the 2024 season. The Bears are going to play the Tennessee Titans. Greg, what are your thoughts on where the roster is now with the Chicago Bears? And do you anticipate there being more changes? Guys brought in for a week or whatever?
I mean, this rosters are always fluid.
Mm-hmm.
They are ever changing. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be somebody available that, as a free agent or whatever, somebody available in a trade. I don't anticipate this week that any veterans will be brought in, just because of if they're a vested veteran, they get paid for the whole year. Their salary's guaranteed.
Right.
So that would come next week or later.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the roster, they're heavy in some positions.
Mm-hmm.
So is it going to stay that way? Now they can bring up 2 guys from the practice squad for the game on Sunday, and that doesn't count. One of the guys is going to be the snapper.
Mm-hmm.
So and then one after that. Now they don't have to play. They don't have to dress. They only can dress 48 guys. So it'll be interesting how that works. But yeah, rosters are always ever evolving. You get excited about the first one, and all it is and I've seen people word it in such a way that they finally got it. It's the initial 53-man roster. It's never a final roster.
That's right. Good saying. Back when you were at Hallis Hall, the pro personnel director was responsible, and still is, I assume. Correct me if I'm wrong. Pro personnel director is responsible for keeping an eye on players, veterans on other teams who could potentially be released. Or my question for you is, do those guys have a list of players? Boy, if this guy is dropped, we got to jump on him. And, are a bunch of players not on that list? How does that work?
Well, first of all, let's back up a little bit. It's not just the pro personnel director, it's the whole pro personnel department, which has grown. They're not as big as college departments, but they're not small. And some teams, if they have a smaller pro department, during the preseason, their college scouts are going to games and watching tape to kind of help with the evaluation. When I was with the Bears, we did not do that. The only person who did any pro evaluation during the preseason from the college department was me. We separated. We had the college department, the pro department, and they reached their own entity. But they do have just like the college people have a board, the pros have a board, and at each position and rank them. And you say, well, could there be a guy, if he becomes available, it's a guy you want to get? Yeah, but it also depends on how much. Is it a guy you got to trade for? Is it a guy you can sign? That type of thing. With a young guy, a lot of times you're going back to what especially if it's a first or second year guy. Did you really like him coming out of college? Was it a guy that you would have liked to have drafted, but for some reason he got picked right before you or whatever? Yeah, those are guys you keep an eye on, because you think, if they do become available, I do want them. And so then, that could be a situation where you put a claim in. Now, I'll tell you what was interesting, though, about this year. Okay, they bring in, my dog just joined me. They
just busted through that door.
I'm going to get up in a second and shut it again. Anyway, the Bears got 2 defensive linemen, new guys, one for the practice squad and one for the 53. Both of those guys had outstanding preseason games. In fact, the guy from New England, what's his name, Sam Roberts, who's on I think he's on the practice squad right now, and he had like 10 tackles in the preseason, 7 of which I think were in the last game.
Wow.
So they watch the tape, and those games are important. So when you see a guy, especially in an area of need, it really jumping out, and you look at his skill set. Does he have the frame, the speed, the athleticism that you're looking for? Then they're going after him. Now, I think nobody's officially said this. I'm just watching the way they played their defensive tackles, and we've talked about it before. I don't think they truly have a 1 and a 3 anymore. They have a left and a right based on how they played in preseason. And except for Billings, who is a more natural 1 or a nose, but he lined up playing some 3 in the preseason. They pretty much had those guys interchangeable depending on the offensive formation. So it was just like the safety position. It was left and right instead of 1 and 3. So if the formation was one way, the left tackle could be a 3. If the formation's another way, the left tackle could be a 1. And they didn't flip-flop like they were doing the last couple of years. I'm just really interested in seeing if that's how it's going to be on Sunday when they play Tennessee.
Interesting. Do you want to close that door and then we'll continue?
Give me 1 second here.
You bet. I'll let people know that they should. Where's my little video here? They should watching on YouTube, hit the bell, and subscribe to the Barroom Network. If you do that, you'll be alerted on your device that we are live. You can catch the show live and interact with Greg and me and all of the other shows on the Barroom Network. That was perfectly timed out. Greg is back. We got a question regarding rosters while we're here. Sports Chicago Style says, Greg, Lewis got a roster spot because of leadership. Why waste a roster spot for that? Just make him a coach. I don't think Mercedes Lewis got a roster spot just because of leadership. Do you?
Probably the best blocking tight end they have.
And one of the best in the league.
Bigsy, in one of his columns, somebody asked basically the same question. And Bigsy said, when you check around the league, which he does, and Brad's got a lot of good connections in the scouting area around the league. And to a man, they all said he can block as good as anybody at 40 years old or whatever the hell he is. He's there for that reason. You go back and look at how many snaps he had last year. He played a lot of football.
Good.
Okay,
got a couple of key passes too.
Yeah. So, and on top of that, he's great in the locker room. And so, not only has he got, I think he only caught 1 pass, maybe 2, for the season, but 1 was a touchdown. But part of the reason he's there is to really teach some of these young guys how to become leaders. And now if you look today, they name the captains. Who's the captain? Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah, about that.
There's 4 captains on the offensive side, 3 on the defensive side. The 4 captains on the offensive side are Caleb, Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, Mercedes Lewis. Okay, and then on the defensive side, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Kevin Byard. What's really interesting? All these guys, except for Cole, have only been only their second year here, first or second year here.
That is fascinating. Yeah, and no Montez Sweat. Did that surprise you when he was left off the defensive captain list?
No, I don't know the man, so I can't say it, but they're voted on now.
Yeah, right.
So it's and it says something about Caleb that he got the vote. Now, the position by nature, you have to be a leader, but it shows that he's taken it upon himself to try to be that type of person, even though he's the youngest guy in the building. So that part you could say is impressive on his part in trying to really play the position the way it needs to be played. And that doesn't include on the field. It includes off the field, because that's where leadership really takes part. So it's I think it's a pretty good group. What surprised me is generally you always have an offensive lineman. There's not one offensive lineman, because that, I don't think that group is, the group as a whole is very young. If there is going to be anybody in that group that would be captain worthy, it would be Bates. And Bates is a new guy this year. And so Caleb's a new guy, but and he might not even be starting because of the injury where he would have been. So that makes sense to me.
Does indeed. Chris Watts up in the Barfly Tailgate Show asks, are you worried, Greg, about the lack of NFL experience in the quarterback room? Between the two guys in the quarterback room, there's a total of 4 NFL starts, none of them for the starter, Caleb Williams. Does that concern you?
I think there's only 2 NFL starts, isn't there? No, 3. 3, I guess, Bajan had, didn't he? Or did he have 4 starts?
He had a 2-2 record.
Yeah, he had 4 starts. He played. He went into another game where he played about 2/3 of the game when Caleb.
Yeah,
got
the
hurt.
Viking game when Justin got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there a worry? Yeah, but who are you going to keep over him?
Mm-hmm.
Rippon, to put it this way, going back to the cuts, Rippon did not surprise me. And it also did not surprise me that they didn't bring him back to the practice squad. And I think we talked about this last week. When you looked at the wording, Pelissaro was the guy who announced that he had been released. And when you look at the wording of the post he had, it said he's now a free agent and he's free to join any team. It did not say he's expected to come rejoin now he gets his information from agents. So it did not say he's expected to rejoin the practice squad tomorrow. So that tells me the Bears told him, see ya.
Yeah, right.
And I think part of the reason is when you look at Reed and compare the skill set of Reed, Bagent, and Caleb, they're all similar. They're all athletic. They all got strong arms. They can extend plays with their feet. So you want the same type of guy for practice purposes all the time. So you're not having to change anything.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Let's see. I got another question here regarding the topic we're on, and it is 3 Point says, although Greg has a theory that winning rookie quarterback happens every 15 years, but looks like Caleb might be one of them. Do you have
I don't have I don't think I've ever mentioned that. I did look through though, and Andrew Luck, Oliver's his dad. Andrew Luck took his team to the playoffs, and he was rookie in 11, I think, 2011, 2012, something like that, and threw for over 4,000 yards. The next rookie quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards was Herbert, but his team didn't get to the playoffs. So the next guy who got to the playoffs
CJ
was Stroud last year, I believe. Now I'd have to go through everything to make sure. Now there could have been somebody who came in later in the year. You could say the San Francisco quarterback did, because he played the last part and even got him to a Super Bowl. Yeah, so and it's because of what the kid did in San Francisco that, and then Stroud too leads you to believe that, well, maybe Caleb can break that mold, because he certainly has more talent than the guy in San Francisco. There's no question about it. Now, San Francisco was a veteran team, more so than the Chicago Bears are right now. But, I'm just excited to see how they actually play the games starting next Sunday.
Yeah.
As compared, now the offense showed a lot more than a lot of teams show in the preseason. I think maybe purposely so. And the defense showed a little bit more. They didn't play strictly vanilla. They did use some blitzes, some with safety, some with corner, sometimes with a linebacker. Not a lot, but enough to say, we can do this several different ways. You better prepare your ass for it.
Greg, it's fascinating. I was doing some work over the weekend and looking back at the history of the NFL and how players were developed for the start of the season. We're going into the season where Roshan Johnson, DeAndre Swift, the number 1 and 2 quarterback, flipped not respectively, but have only between the two of them only got like 2 or 3 carries in preseason game. Does that concern you as somebody who has worked at the NFL level, that you're going into your first regular season game? We talked about the quarterbacks not having snaps. Well, these running backs under the Bears system have not had many snaps too. This is kind of a really strange time in the NFL, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the whole league. You got to, and part of it probably has to do with the money, because you got a lot of money invested in some of these guys, and you don't want that guy to get hurt in a game that doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. What did Swift play? 10 plays, if that.
Yeah.
And did he have 1 carry? I think he might have had 1 carry in the preseason. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Caught a couple balls. One was a big one. That's what everybody's doing. They're getting prepared for the season. Now, you could argue it this way. Okay, this weekend was college football opening weekend. How many preseason games do they play? Besides none.
Yeah. That's the answer.
And so, next year, if they go to 18 games, or 2 years from now, if they go to 18 games, they're going to cut it down to 2 preseason games.
Yeah.
Then what the hell are you going to see in that?
Right. Yeah. It's the new reality. We'll have to live with it.
I think reality is that you're going to even see more when they go to 18. You're going to see more joint practices. Mm-hmm. And your joint practices are going to be your preseason games.
Yeah. That would make sense. And those are a huge effort to get live game action, but also have requirements in place to protect the quarterback. So it is what it is. All right, I've got questions from Flex, Arnie, Badass, New England Bears fan, Kenworth, and a couple of others. I'm going to save those. I want to switch our discussion right now to the Tennessee Titans. They got a brand new head coach, Brian Callahan, comes over from, now I'm drawing a blank. He was at Cincinnati Bengals as their offensive coordinator. And was the offensive coordinator for 4 seasons. Before that, he was the QB coach with the Raiders, and before that with the Lions. What do you have an opinion on Brian Callahan? And I'll also ask if you have a thought on Denard Wilson, their defensive coordinator, or Nick Foles, the offensive coordinator. Please share.
Well, I know Denard Wilson. He worked with us at Hallis Hall.
Okay, name sounded familiar.
He was an assistant pro guy.
Is he any good at his job? Greg smiling and frozen. There you are. You're back. You were frozen for a little while.
Okay, so you didn't hear what I said, right?
No, not at all.
Okay, I said Denard Wilson worked with us. He was on the pro staff. Good guy. But how good a coach is, I don't know. It's been years since I've talked to Denard, but a good guy. Callahan, I never met. Very good reputation. I suspect, but I don't know this for sure, being that he was a coordinator in Cincinnati under Taylor, which is, very similar offense to what, Taylor came from the Rams. Waldron came from the Rams, before he was at Seattle. So you're going to see a similar type offense.
Okay.
Is he going to have his own wrinkles in it? Of course he is.
Sure.
But I think that it helps having, had a joint practice and a preseason game against Cincinnati. That actually helped you get ready for Tennessee.
Oh, I didn't think of it that way. That's a great point, Greg.
And that's strictly for the defensive side. Now, you'd have to tell me I don't know where Denard was last year, where he came from. I might have been at Philly.
Yeah, let me see if I can find out Denard. Let's see. 42 years old. Last season, he was with the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, so, Baltimore was a 3-4 team.
Mm-hmm.
So is Tennessee going to be playing a base 3-4? Now, everybody, the base defense is really almost like your old nickel. They hardly ever play it, and they're playing a 4-2-5. But still, you have your interior guys are more two-gapping type players than one gap like the Bears are. So it's a different type of scheme. Yeah, they're showing that as a 3-4.
Yeah, and this is a graphic from our lads. The information's from our lads.
Right. So basically, one of those three, and it's not going to be Simmons, either Joseph Day or Sweat is going to be out, and then Landry and Arden Key are your edge players.
Mm-hmm. So they've got Tavondre Sweat as the rookie as the nose tackle position. There were some issues with him during preseason, but he is on track to get plenty of snaps Sunday against the Bears. He's a big body. Do you think he's going to present any problems for Shelton at the center position?
No. I mean, Shelton's been in the league for a long time. He's been a starter with the Rams the last couple of years. He's got to play against some big guys.
Mm-hmm.
So and he's and Sweat is talented, but when you watch tape, he wasn't dominating like the guys from Georgia were, like Carter 2 years ago, and the other big guy that's in Philly also the year before. Those guys were big, strong, dominating defensive tackles. Sweat's good. I didn't see him as dominating like those guys are.
Mm-hmm.
Will you have to chip on him a little bit? Maybe. It depends. But how often are they going to be in that base 3-4 with him on the nose when you're playing with three wides?
Right.
Okay. So that tells, he might get as many snaps as Sanborn gets as a Sam linebacker. If you follow what I'm saying, because just the way they play defense.
Right. Excuse the misspelling there on free safety Quandre Diggs. Roger McCreary, the nose. Do you think the Bears should pick on him with his little tiny arms? His tiny arm length? Roger McCreary, the nose corner.
Hell, I'd put a big guy on him. A little
exactly.
midget.
Put Keenan Allen in the slot and see what McCreary does.
29-inch arms. Have Allen, who's got real long arms, and Rome's got real long arms too.
Exactly.
That's a tough matchup.
Yep. Daryl D asked the question, Greg, with the running game of the Tennessee Titans, will that keep the Bears nickel back off of the field? Let me put up the graphic for the offense here. They've got Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears as their 1 and 2 running backs. Do you think that they're going to be running often on the Bears defense, and therefore Kyler Gordon might not see a lot of playing time?
Here's what's interesting. Their left tackle is J.C. Latham, who's a rookie, right?
That's right.
Okay, Latham was a right tackle in college.
Okay.
and he may have played left one year, but I don't remember him being on the left side. He probably could have been, but I know like last year he was strictly on the right side. And when I did tape, he's a good player. I just don't see him as a left tackle. Yeah, I don't. So you're gonna, but the Bears now they can switch Sweat around between them, but predominantly he plays on the left side, meaning he goes against the right tackle. And whoever's going to start, and I have a sneaking suspicion Booker may end up starting, but I'm just, I'm guessing that's a dart at the wall.
Okay. Regarding,
now, could they could start Walker because they expect Tennessee to run, but we'll see.
Somebody just mentioned that if Dobbsy mentioned if DeAndre Hopkins plays, they have 3 solid wide receivers, maybe better than average for sure, with Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd. Where's your level of confidence in Will Levis, who was 3-6 last season as a rookie, had a 58.4 completion percentage, which was worst in the NFL, 8 passing touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Do you like Will Levis?
Yeah, I liked him coming out, and he got better the more he played.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he can be flustered, so you want to pressure him,
right?
Like any young quarterback, he put it this way: he doesn't have the natural talent of a Caleb Williams, not even close to it. So, but he's got a big arm, and he can make plays with his feet. He's a big, strong guy. So, they got a formidable offense, but they don't have that big battering ram of a running back anymore.
Yeah, they don't. Right?
So now they got a totally different type of running game. And so just seeing how of course, they're a new coach. So how they're going to use that, the run game remains to be seen. But it's not going to be like we've seen for the last few years.
Yeah. 3.5. Houston says, I cannot see a way the Bears lose to the Titans. And I kind of agree with him. This Titans team is talented, but with a rookie head coach, a mixture of veterans who some of them have not played well in a couple of years, and young players. This team is a big mystery, but the big thing is, if the bettors will tell you, look at who the best quarterback is, and in this case, I think Caleb is heads and tails above Will Levis. You agree with that?
Yeah, and it's a home game. You're playing at home. You're going to have a lot of hype going on. The fans are going to be going crazy. So you're going to have that. The crowd will be loud, and that's what you need. Mm-hmm. You need. If the Bears get off, you got a rookie quarterback. So they could very well get off to a slow start offensively. Right. when Caleb started that one game, they went 3 series, like 3 and out, before they got the offense really rolling. So the natives can't get restless if that happens on Sunday. You got to keep backing them, and you hope the defense does their job. And if the Bears got a punt, you hope Taylor does what he got drafted for and switch field position.
Yeah. Do you anticipate Taylor could have some challenges in the NFL, given, it's a different ball, isn't it? First of all, college football punts with a different ball than pro.
Yeah, it's a little different ball, and the big difference is, and I could tell you a story about this, is that the ball that was used for kicking in college,
right, was
like a special ball.
Yeah.
And generally, it was scuffed up, older, might have been overinflated. And it's like they had helium in them. And I was at a game. At the game, I remember the game. It was Arkansas at Georgia. So, and I'm sitting in the press box, and I can't think of his name now. He lives in Skokie area or Evanston, and lead official for a long time. And then he retired. He went to work for the league office. Mark
Bright. Yes.
Okay, lives in Evanston. So anyway, I'm sitting with Jerry. Jerry used to come to Hell's Hall to watch fake tape because, but his job was to scout college refs to offer them NFL jobs. So he's sitting with me in the press box. So this is years ago. And he goes, Greg, he goes, how come our kickers can't kick like that? So I said, Jerry, I said, just watch the ball. After the ball gets kicked, watch the ball. And he's looking at me like I'm strange or something. I said, believe me, just watch what happens with the ball. So a guy kicks or whatever, either kickoff or a punt, it doesn't matter, goes into the end zone. There's a guy there getting ready to grab it, brings it back to the center of the field, puts it in a box, and he's holding two balls. There's two balls in the box. One's the punting ball, one's the kick ball.
Interesting.
And they're, I guess if you looked at them, they probably look like they're 10 years old. They're so scuffed up, and in the NFL, you got a brand new freaking ball every week.
Yeah, exactly. What does the scuff do to the ball? How does that
softens it up?
Okay. All right. Let's get some more questions in here. Flex Diggs is asking a question that we've heard before, but your opinions can change from week to week. What area of the team are you most worried about going into this season? Is it the depth at defensive end, the unproven nature of some of the players on the team? Is it the offensive line? It can't be the defensive backfield. That's the strength of the team.
No, to me, it's not defensive end. I think they've addressed it. They've got some young guys that they think can rush the passer that they seem to be happy with. So I'm not going to argue that with them. If I'm worried about anything, it's the depth of defensive tackle right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Now you look at the preseason tape. Granted, it's preseason. But when you look at preseason tape and you see the way Chris Williams played, he's pretty good. Was a pretty good player on tape. Same with this Roberts. Now Roberts is still on the practice squad. Who knows if Pickens is going to be available? We'll know that, probably Wednesday when they have to put out their first injury designations. They'll have a practice today, probably a light practice. They'll be off tomorrow, like a normal game week, and then they'll be back on Wednesday and do a typical Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And the first time they really got to address the injury situation as far as out or limited or full is on Wednesday. So, and then they'll address what it is that's injured too, where you don't have to do that in the preseason. So, it's going to be then that we find out. And, I'm sure Flus will probably do a presser today because guys were off all, since Thursday was the last time they practiced. So, I doubt that he'll say anything new. I'd be surprised if he said anything new because you just don't have to. Why give any ammo to the other team when you don't have to do it?
Absolutely. Arnie Lindbergh asked about Ricky Stromberg and perhaps the Bears acquiring him, but he has been put on the injured reserve list by Washington, is the report that I last saw. Yeah, it says CBS Sports reports, and this was 4 days ago. Stromberg reverts to injured reserve, an undisclosed.
Oh, then he was waived injured. He might have been waived injured.
Okay. So does that mean he's available?
I think he was released.
Okay.
No, what happens when you're waived injured, very seldom is somebody going to pick you up because you're hurt.
Yeah.
And then when you clear waivers, you revert to injured reserve.
Oh, I'll see. What's that team?
Yeah. Well, you won't lose me if I look it up, right?
No,
I can look up
Ricky Stromberg.
Yeah.
And I will remind people that we would really appreciate it. Get rid of that graphic. If you hit that like button, hit that little bell, hit the subscribe button, tell people about GTF. They'll be here Mondays throughout the season, occasionally on Tuesday.
I can talk while I'm looking this up, so.
Well, look at you. I can't do that.
I can walk and chew gum at the same time.
I lost that skill.
It might not be easy, but I can do it.
Okay.
I'm just waiting on my slow computer
There you go. That new internet that you're going to
injured
get
reserve
should
list
help.
he is not a
So he's probably a free agent then,
let me see here.
So weird.
Physically unable to form is Obata. They got one guy on injured reserve, and that is Norrell Pollard.
Mm-hmm.
This is Washington, right? Yeah. He is not on the practice squad and not on injured reserve.
Yeah.
So he is out there.
There are a lot of articles from Commanders blog people and podcasters criticizing the draft pick and the player and criticizing Ron Rivera, no longer with the team, for drafting Stromberg. So I'm not sure.
Ron didn't have. I mean, Ron probably had final say, but they had two guys, one of which is still there, in a different role. In fact, both of them are really there. The guys who were running the personnel department never got fired. So they just have different roles, and one's a consultant. So. Stromberg, a lot of people thought he was a good player. Maybe he's just not as good as people thought he was going to be. Here's what I don't get. It's every week we got a question. You got to get a center. You got to get a center. You got to get a center. They don't understand. The Bears front office and coaching staff love the two centers they have.
They do, yeah.
And the people, there's a lot of fans that refuse to believe it. And, nothing we can do about that.
Yeah. My problem with the offensive line, and help me get over this, is that we don't have a Pro Bowl, All-Pro player on the offensive line. And it seems to me like teams that go far in the playoffs usually have one or two guys that are in Pro Bowl contention. And this team could potentially have some, in Darnell Wright at right tackle, and Tevin Jenkins at left guard, and maybe even Braxton Jones at left tackle. That could happen. But right now, when you evaluate what they have done to this point, there isn't a player on this offensive line, and that worries me a little bit.
I can't argue with you or disagree with you. There are some guys that could turn into that type of player. They're not there yet. But now you go back to Thursday afternoon when Ryan Poles spoke. And he went out of his way to say, this is the best group of offensive linemen we've had since I've been here. And he's really high on them. He said, the depth is good. The versatility is good. And he went through, all the starters. Said Tevin was playing the best ball he's played since those guys have been here. Braxton Jones has improved, and I'm sure he's talking about the anchor there. I think he sees a bright future in right. He loves Bates and Coleman, and he mentioned Nate Davis. He goes, Nate's got to, prove that he's, reliable as far as durability, but the player, they like the player. So, and he thinks the depth is really good. I'm a little bit unsure about depth at left tackle because Pryor can play it. He can get you out of a game. But, what if Jones goes down and you got to play a couple games? Well, you got a rookie, Amagaji, and who normally be that guy, you wouldn't worry about it. But he's played like 0 snaps. Now, you can say that about the running back, but the running backs, he's been a very efficient pro throughout his career. Amagaji's had like 2 weeks of practice.
Yeah. It's very difficult to imagine that he's going to be.
And I'll be really interested to see how many offensive linemen are active and who they are.
Yes, I can't wait for that. Right. Indeed. New England Bears fan, Greg, last year the Bears chose not to release a uniform schedule, and Bears fandom lost their minds. Are there any kinds of advantages to a team not releasing a uniform schedule? Yeah, what was behind that? My Tuesday night
I have no
podcast
idea.
partner, Dan Aguirre, was like asking me if they released a uniform schedule yet. I think he wears the same, because he's got 50,000 jerseys. I think he wears the same colored jerseys for each game. And yeah, I would imagine that the only advantage is that, well, I was going to say 2 or 3 years ago, they played in Tampa Bay on the road in sweltering hot, and they were wearing, no, it was in Chicago, and they were wearing the blue jerseys as opposed to a lighter colored jersey. And that was a decision that was made weeks in advance. And they should have realized on September, it could potentially be 90 degrees. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a great question.
You know what the temperature is supposed to be on Sunday? You know what the temperature is supposed to be, the high, at least for up here. I didn't look. Chicago's always a couple degrees warmer because you're in the city. But where I live, north suburbs, the high right now, so it's still 6 days away, 5 days away. The guys from Tennessee are going to come here and freeze. I mean, 68 is going to be cold to them.
68 is going to be cold. Oh, that's good weather.
That's supposed to be the high. Now here, so that means downtown it'll probably be 70, 71, but that's still cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with Chris. Bring back the all-white uniforms, please.
I mean, we used them a lot when I was here. One year we had the blue pants, but I think most of the time we had the all whites, which I like. I don't know whose choice that is, whether that's a McCaskey choice, a Tony Medlin choice, whatever. And by the way, just the thing that Bears.com did on the equipment people was really good. And Tony Medlin, who's been there like forever.
Yeah. So he was there when you were there, right?
Oh yeah, and he was there a long time before we got there. You know, he's part of the building. I think it's 37 years he's been there.
Wow, I'd love to talk to him. He's probably
he is the nicest man, and I'm going to say, without question, he's highly respected, and you don't mess with Tony because he treats everybody really, really well, and he treats everybody with respect. And the players love him. The coaches love him. Everybody in the building loves the guy. Just an outstanding individual. It's his, you know, you have that coat drive that goes on starting around Thanksgiving. That's his. Yeah. That's his idea.
Interesting. Yeah, he's a great guy. Would love to talk to him. He needs more media attention. He's a Chicago Bears treasure. Next question comes from Kenworth, there is. Greg, you had some concerns with Caleb prior to the draft. Do you still have these major concerns with Caleb?
Well,
where are you with Caleb?
Well, I never had a concern with his playing ability. We know that. I mean, I've written about that. In fact, 2 weeks before I started having the concerns, I wrote an article in Windy City Gridiron that he was, you know, a generational quarterback. And then
I remember reading that.
Yeah. It was character issues, and character isn't really the right word because that makes you sound like you're a bad person. And nobody's ever said, you know, more personality type things. And everything that I was told has turned out to be so far wrong.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes these things, you know, people change, and Caleb appears to have been a model citizen for a long time. But we can't dismiss that some people who are closer to the situation, to the player than we are, you know, have noticed some things that they were concerned about, and they shared them with you. But hopefully, that was either misinterpreted or he has changed as a man. And
well, you know what? I'll say this, just from watching him, he gets it, is the best way to put it.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. He seems to not only get it, but that he goes beyond getting it and works deliberately at executing what he espouses, and which is one of the reasons I'm so excited about him. He wants to be great, but he doesn't sound arrogant when he talks about being great. He instead, demonstrates it with how he treats his teammates, how he interacts with the media. And the only thing that I've noticed that bothered me a little bit, Greg, I don't know if it bothered you, was his body language on Hard Knocks when he was talking to Eberflus. He had his arms folded. Then, he wasn't taking notes. The head coach was taking notes. And that sound an alarm to you at all?
No, because that was his meeting with Flus, who's not his coach.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where he's in the quarterback room.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he's got a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator in there. He probably meets with Flus a few times a week. And so that's good. And he seems to have a very good, working relationship with Flus. So, yeah, I did not bother me in the slightest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Flus is a note taker. I mean, you and I could walk in there, he might take notes. That's the type of person he is.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Richard Long says or asks, what about misinformation by teams drafting lower? That's a game that you are experienced in. I'm not saying that you did it, but you have probably have had other teams share misinformation, not to you personally, but to the media to maybe get you off the track of a player that both teams would be interested in.
I will say this: the people I talked to, that would not have been the case at all.
Mm-hmm. Because you trust those.
I mean, not even in the slightest.
But I think what Richard is saying, maybe those people told.
And one person does not work for a team. He's affiliated with the league.
Oh, okay.
And as such, and what his job is, he talks to a lot of people. He had spent time with Caleb. He had spent time with the dad, and that was his opinion.
Okay. And I have speculated that perhaps some people were a little, for lack of a better way of putting it, put off by the fact that this player and his dad were thinking about maybe changing some of the way things have been done, and not knowing you can't go against the CBA, or that's not the way things have been done, and so forth. And that might have rubbed people the wrong way. Is that fair to speculate that?
Well, there was people that questioned that because
Right.
he did inquire.
Yes.
Dad did inquire. But I mean, he was told, hey, there's nothing you can do about it. The CBA, that's a agreed upon document between the Players Association and the league. You aren't about to change it.
Right.
So you could try all you want. It's not getting changed. So, you'd be basically, pissing in the wind in that situation. But, he wanted to find out, and he found out. That's what he was told. I know because I've got a lot of friends in the agent community. There were agents that were turned off by the dad because the dad wanted to be so involved. And, for lack of a better way of saying it, you could say some of these guys really turned off the dad because they basically told dad, shut the fuck up and sit in the corner.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is my job, and you're going to do it my way. And as it turned out, he never hired an agent. He hired an advisor who was an agent, but he didn't, as it turned out, it was the person who did the negotiating in person was Caleb.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's a complicated situation, and I know a lot of people were unhappy with you when you came out against Caleb. And one of those people is 3.5 Houston. He says, Greg is never good at quarterback evaluation in totality. You want to respond to that?
I'd say shove it up your ass.
Another commercial. 3.5 goes on to say,
put it this way. Do you think he can do better?
There you go.
What do you look for? Come on, 3.5. What do you look for? What's the first thing you look for? What's the second thing you look for?
He then goes on to say, please ask Greg about the Notre Dame game thing. Greg stated numerous times in the past that Caleb never recovered after the Notre Dame game.
He didn't. I'll say it right now. He did not. He was not the same quarterback the rest of the season. Now, when you go back to look at it, the whole team did not. The whole team stunk.
Yeah,
a lot of that falls on the head coach.
He does. Yes.
There was a lot of negativity in the locker room. And, I think, the one time, I think it was the Washington game where Caleb went over and was all upset, and was crying with his mother. That was, I think, when you find out the whole truth, more to go with what's going on around him with his teammates.
Mm-hmm.
That was he was in.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, did he have good stats?
Yeah.
Yes, he had good stats. Did he have the magic in his play that he had for the 18 games, 19 games, 20 games? No, not even close.
All right.
I'll take that one to my grave.
I agree with you there. This is the last one between you and 3 Point that I'm going to put up, give you one more chance to set them straight if you want to. Greg, I am not a scout. I was incapable of doing that, and I don't pretend that I can. I think he's taking
Then don't make a stupid frickin' comment when you don't know what you're talking about. It's real simple, and if you don't like it, you don't want to listen to the show, fine. I don't care.
I think, one of the things is that people think that scouts should be infallible. You can't make a mistake. There isn't a general manager or scout.
And I've said this before when we get near the draft. When you get into scouting meetings, you have, first of all, you have one guy, more than one guy looks at the guy. You're going to have, let's say, a half a dozen. Okay. And do you think all half a dozen reports are the same? They're not even close to being the same. And I don't care, who the player is, whether it's a Braxton Jones, a Caleb Williams, or whatever. You're going to have players that have high. You're going to have other guys that have low. Some guys that have in the middle. Some of it has to do when they saw him. The first guy in who might be going in, now or went in during the preseason. What the tape did he look at? He looked at last year's tape. And then, this is a new season. What did the guy do during the offseason to help himself get better? Did he get bigger and stronger? Did he get a little faster? I'll give you a perfect example. A little defensive tackle I did this morning for one of the agents I worked for from Penn State. He was he's like 6'1", 190 pounds, something like that. And he was a decent player last year. And they were doing their defense. They have a new defensive coordinator this year. Their defensive coordinator got the head job somewhere else this year. Is it Virginia or one of the schools down? I think in the Atlantic Coast. He's the head coach now. Manny Diaz, but he was a defensive coordinator at Penn State last year, and he had Penn State. Their defensive tackles were actually doing similar to what the Bears were doing during the summer: left tackle, right tackle, instead of one technique, three technique. So you saw this guy lining up as a 3, saw him lining up as a 1. And when he was at a 3, I thought he was really good. When he was at a 1, because of his size, didn't look quite as good unless he could beat the guy initially with his quickness. Now, fast forward to this year in Saturday's game against West Virginia, mostly playing at the 1, which is, and he had a good game. He had like 1.5 sacks and 4 tackles. Mm-hmm. So, and, he's probably going to be a day 2 guy. We'll see how the rest of the season goes, because he is undersized at 6'1", 290. Looks like he has real long arms. You got to put the tape measure on it. But, you're going to get a lot of different views on that guy because of his size. There's going to be teams that, play like the Ravens play, and they might even take him off the board because he doesn't fit their size criteria.
Yeah. Interesting. I think the conversation, regarding the evaluation of Caleb, we're going to pause it now. From now on, we're going to only evaluate what he does as a Chicago Bear, because that's all that really matters.
Back on this show, when it was right when it was obvious they were going to take Caleb, it was either right at the draft or right before. And I said, "Hey, I'm a big fan now. He's a Bear."
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. I was not a fan of Mitchell Trubisky. Hated the pick. Hated the fact that they moved up one spot to draft a guy who should have been drafted in the 2nd round. Hated it, but he was wearing the jersey, and so I rooted for him like he was a family member. Not as much as
he's a perfect example. Perfect example. There were a lot of people around the league that had him as QB1, and he went QB1.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that had Mahomes as QB3, and he went QB3. In fact, his agent, who I know very well, didn't think he was going to go before 15.
Wow.
And part of the reason was, he didn't play on a good team at Texas Tech. And, he had gunslinger in him.
Mm-hmm.
But when you saw the wow plays, and there were a lot of wow plays,
my goodness,
and throw out what he's done at Kansas. I mean, this is just at Texas Tech.
Yes.
But he never even got him to a freaking bowl game.
Yeah.
So now, granted, it's the whole team. It's not just one player, but he ended up. Part of your success in the National Football League is getting with the right team, getting the right coach. He got the absolute perfect team to go to with Andy Reid.
Yes. On that vein, do you think a guy like, Justin Fields, who did not get with the right team, the right coach, and so forth, do you think that those 3 seasons with Chicago could possibly have done irreparable harm to him as a quarterback? Or do you think that those things can be fixed, and maybe not in particular with him, but with most quarterbacks? Reclamation projects.
It's a great question because as we both know, Getsy's not here, and I put a lot of the blame on Caleb's play with Getsy. Caleb made plays with Nagy coaching him his first year. He never got better. And I put some of that on Getsy. But now you look at Pittsburgh, and I do believe he's going to be the starter sooner rather than later. That some of this was predetermined with Russell Wilson, because I watched Russell Wilson in the preseason and he looked horrendous except for one throw. But Caleb was doing some of the same stuff he did here. Held on to the ball too long. Now, granted, in the last game, or Justin, he held on to the ball too long. Granted, he was playing in the one game. He was playing with the twos. He wasn't playing with the ones. Fumbled the ball a couple times. One time there was a missed snap. That's not his fault. That's the center's fault. So you saw some of the same stuff. So, and now he's got a different coach. So if he doesn't turn out to be, to be a player, then it was him. It was a bad pick.
Yeah.
And all the, but you go back and you look at the Ohio State stuff, and that was really, really impressive. You can't tell. I mean, you could look at his final year at Ohio State and CJ Stroud's final year at Ohio State, and you can't tell me you take CJ Stroud over Caleb Williams. So looking strictly at the college tape.
Right. Yeah. I can't argue with any of that, and no one in the chat room is making an argument. So
well, how about this though? I mean, because it's fact. CJ Stroud couldn't beat Michigan. Fact, right?
Yep.
Caleb went 2-0 against Michigan.
Yep.
CJ Stroud couldn't get his team into the playoffs. Caleb got him to the national championship game. And look at Caleb had some good players, no question. But look at the players CJ Stroud had too.
Indeed. Let's see. Arnie asked, do you think the conditional fourth rather than six has any bearing on Russell Wilson playing, or do you think the Steelers don't put any consideration into that?
Well, first of all, people say, well, there goes the fourth. No, it doesn't. He's got to play 50% of the plays for the whole season. This is game one.
Right.
We got a long way to go, but you're not going to find out if that is put it this way, if he doesn't play until like the ninth game, then it's a six. But if he ends up being the starter, and then, they've already said he's going to be playing this week. They got packages for him.
Yeah.
So they're going to do that. And then on top of that, it's, how effective can Russell Wilson be? Wilson does not have the athleticism that he used to have. He's still got decent arm. He's got anticipation, but let's face it, he has not had a good season in 3 years. And he's 36 years old. His best football is behind him. You'd hope from a coaching standpoint that we lost a little bit there, huh?
Yeah, I lost you at you would hope at from a coach's standpoint. So please finish the thought.
That Justin Fields' best football's in front of him.
I hope so too.
We don't know the answer to that. We got to see.
And somebody in the chat is saying that another podcast network has broken down the Justin Fields tape, and it's pretty obvious that he can't read defenses, and that's no secret. I think even a layman watching tape could tell that Justin had issues with processing, and sometimes he was okay, and sometimes he was just horrendous. But there are
it is, I think, and I'm guessing. I'm sorry for I think he's just not confident.
Yeah, because he sees it, but he doesn't throw it.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't trust what he sees, and I think it's become because you did not see that in college. Okay, so now,
right, that's
over.
The thing.
He made some mistakes in the NFL. Now you're trying not to, instead of being your instinctive self, you're trying not to make the mistake. And so you see the guy, I might be able to make that throw. You got to make it and go.
Got to do it. Yes, you got to do it. And he's got it in him. We've seen it. But the weird thing to me is, and I keep going back, this is probably the fifth or sixth time I keep going back, that opening play against the Minnesota Vikings at home, the game where he got injured, the very first play, ghost backfield, nobody in the backfield. The play is get the snap, take a step or two to your right, and fire to the fullback who was going on a pass, and he called at the line of scrimmage. He called the blocking scheme, which for the blocking scheme to follow to the right. And Minnesota had 6 guys at the defensive line position, and so he knew that the far guy was going to come in unblocked, and yet he didn't pull the trigger on a 2-yard pass and looked to his left, and voila, bang. And I'm thinking to myself, you've gone over this in practice. This is the very first day. Did you forget that guy was going to be unblocked when you made the blocking call to go to the right?
You should be able to see that right away when you're up your pre-snap read at the line of scrimmage.
Exactly. So he's not stupid, but was he nervous? That's one of the things I
don't know.
got concerned about.
You know, that I'm never going to know the answer to that because I'm not around the guy.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you this. I think Ryan Poles gave us a inkling that it had a lot to do with nerves. We saw Justin Fields on the sideline doing breathing exercises and all this stuff. And when Caleb was drafted by Poles, one of the things that he said is, you know, we looked at whether the quarterback can handle big moments. And Justin had success with big moments in college. There's no doubt about it. But I think he was taking a shot at Justin there because Justin there were big moments at the NFL level that he just didn't respond to. That's my gut feeling. I don't have any proof for it.
Well, I know for a fact from a good source there was, but I don't. If I name the source, it would say who the guy is in the office. There was a high-ranking member in the Bears front office who doesn't think Justin Fields is worth a shit. So
interesting. There were a few people who said that, and they were quickly dismissed. You know, in hindsight, you got to go back and maybe give those guys some props. It just. Unfortunately, we're at a time in NFL history where quarterbacks are being overvalued. Guys that should have been drafted in the second round are going in the first round, and that just, you know, in our open, Greg,
it happened this year.
Yeah,
look at how many quarterbacks went in the top 10.
Yes,
or top 12. I mean, you know, it's crazy because you don't have one and you panic.
Right.
So I got to get one.
The league has turned so much, you know, like when you were drafting for the Bears in that round where 4 running backs, I think we're taking
three running backs in the top 5. I mean, that just doesn't happen anymore.
It will probably never happen again.
There was one other draft after that where I think 3 went in the first round. It might have been like 3 years later or something. But yeah, never went like that. But back then, that was a premier position.
Yep, that was it.
Okay, and things change. You know, there's evolution that goes on, and you wouldn't think twice about taking a running back real high back then. You do now.
Yeah,
these guys got to be extra special, and a lot of it has to do with longevity. You know, I'd rather have an offensive lineman who can play 10, 12 years versus a running back who's a one contract guy.
Mm-hmm. I got to put this up on the screen here because I have never seen this before. Aldo, you're correct. Thank you.
Oh,
I don't get that.
Which one are you correct about? You're correct all the time.
All right, let's get back to some questions here to finish up our show. Let's go with Matthew Fuchisi. He says, Gabriel, what should we be worried about this weekend versus Tennessee? Great question, Fuchisi.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that. Health.
Yeah, always, right?
Health. You know, that's the young guys are as good as the front office and the coaching staff think they are or hope they are.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, let's take this a step further because George Bukowski came out with it. And I thought it was really good on George's part to say that. That is, hey, There's going to be some growing pains here.
Yeah.
George gets it from that standpoint. And there are going to be. You can't, everybody, he's going to throw for 4,000 yards. He's going to throw for. He might not. So what? The important thing is that the team's better.
Yes, indeed.
Everybody wants this magical 4,000. And I'll go back and Pep said it a number of times. He goes, it's awful hard to get 4,000 yards with Soldier Field being your home field because you don't know what the weather's going to be. He goes, you could be playing in the middle of October and you got stuff coming in off the lake that just, even though it's a warm day or something like that, you don't have elements. You got wind and stuff coming off. He said he was with San Francisco, came here to play. And he goes, the day of the game, they had to change the game plan because they could not throw the football, period. Wow. They couldn't throw it.
That's wild.
They were out there. No, but they were out before pregame warmups. They're out there, and they had their quarterback trying to throw. They couldn't throw.
That's amazing. I'll tell you one thing that I'm worried about is we know that Tennessee is going to try to trick up the young quarterback with exotic blitz schemes and fronts and so forth. So that's the only thing I'm worried about. Caleb very honestly said, I think it was Herb Howard that asked him, what is it that you're furthest away from where you want to be before game one? Now, this was almost a month ago, but he did answer after very careful consideration. He did answer, where the blitz might come from, where this guy, blah, blah, blah. And so that could still be a problem given that he's going to face his first real tough test at the NFL level, not the kind of defenses he played in preseason. So that's probably the only thing
I got an answer to that, and actually it was talked about on Hard Knocks in one of his conversations with Flus, and he said, like Flus said, well, what have you learned or something, and his answer is, practice is harder than the games.
I thought that was great.
Okay, do you remember that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And I think what they have done, and this is to Flus's credit, is they have thrown everything at this kid in practice.
Yeah.
Different looks, different blitzes, and so the media saying, "Oh, offense looks so much better in the games than the thing," and I think that was by plan.
Yeah, that's a great point, Greg.
And because they were doing so much, and you wouldn't do that normally. I can go back to, when I was working for the Giants and Dan Reeves was the head coach. And when you got into team periods, you'd have a script, you'd have a script going for the offense. Dan would script the defense too to make sure the defense was a good defense that his play would work against. So it really, it wasn't helping his defense at all, but it was helping his offense. Oh, we look great. We made some great plays, but you can't do that. Yeah. You're hurting your team doing that. And, what they were doing to the Bears, and it's really the Bears offense, not just to Caleb, is they really made him work for everything they got in practice. And that is going to help this kid early on in the season. So it's not like he's seeing it for the first time. Yeah, he's seen it from a different team, and it could be a little bit different. And especially, Sunday, because they're a odd man defense, being a 3-4 base, there's going to be some things that are a little bit different. But, for the most part, he's seen a lot of different looks and different types of blitzes and things in practice already, just to get his mind ready for it.
Love it. Good stuff. Kenworth says, what are your predictions for the 24-25 Chicago Bears season? Do you think they're going to be over or under what Vegas has put them at, 8.5 wins?
I think they have a winning season. I don't know if, I'm not going to say they're going to make the playoffs. I think they have a winning season.
Okay. Let's take a look at this schedule here. Greg, the everyone is talking about what happens from week 11 when they meet the Packers for the first time in the season to week 18 when they close the season against the Packers. In between them are all the other games with division teams. The Vikings on week 12 and week 15, and the Lions week 13 and week 16. And then additionally, you got a game against the 49ers and Seahawks in there. Does that part of the schedule worry you, Greg?
No, 6 out of their last 8 are division games.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point of the year, now obviously you got to be healthy, but of the year, especially with a rookie quarterback, he's no longer a rookie. Okay, so he's seen a lot. And so to have those games then, I think, is an advantage to the Bears. 6 out of the last 8 games are division games, with San Francisco and Seattle being the ones that aren't. So, right now, I think they win the first one. Week 2 scares me.
Yes.
Against Houston, the Colts. They got to play the Colts on the road. Colts are tough on the road. So, those are going to be some tough games. I think they can beat the Rams here.
Yes.
But Carolina, they better win that game.
If they don't, I might go to London and kick some ass. And I don't gamble, but that's a game that I wouldn't mind putting $100 on for them to beat the Panthers.
Yeah, it depends.
I hate losing money.
Depends what the point spread is. So,
yeah, of course. But let's get a couple more in here and then take a nap is what I'm going to do, to be honest with you.
That sounds like a good idea.
PZ asks, is the Justin Fields pick conditional on games played or started? It's snaps, right? Isn't it? 51%?
It's total snaps, 50% of the offensive snaps.
Yeah, and so
it doesn't have anything to do with games played. It's total snaps.
And so, like you said, he could be at the wide receiver position. It'll count as a snap, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, let's see. With Richard says, with all the hype the offense is getting, do you think the defense might still be the king of this team's success?
No question. No question.
You
want the defense picked up where they left off in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Now you get, it's preseason. Well, okay. And I think I said this last week. Yeah, it was preseason. But the ones won convincingly against ones,
mm-hmm.
and the 2s and 3s dominated against 2s and 3s. Okay,
awesome.
So, and then when they had a joint practice against a playoff caliber division winning team, they won. And that was mostly 1s versus 1s because they weren't, Cincinnati wasn't going to play the 1s in the game. So that part says, okay, the team is getting better. And so it's not, if people say, preseason wins don't mean anything. That's true, but it's how they win and how they play. Yeah. And that part was very encouraging. Yeah. Am I a homer? Yeah. Guilty. But
I'm a homer.
It is what it is. But if I thought they stunk, but they didn't. I mean, they kicked everybody's ass.
They surely did. Yeah, and regarding
good teams.
Right. Exactly. Good AFC teams. That absolutely.
You could arguably say it's 4 of the top 6 best teams in the AFC.
Yep. I am of the opinion that you want to win in preseason. You want to win every snap. You want to win every one-on-one battle. You want to win every quarter. You want to win. just think of it that way and don't say, yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it does matter. You want to win.
I think it's more so now when you've got a team still in developmental stage because they got to learn how to win. And part of that, I don't care what the game is, it's a win. And you feel good after a win. And so I think that, that's part of developing the culture. Now, if you go back and you look at the game, you didn't see guys loafing. And I don't care if it's first, second, or third string that's in there. You saw guys running to the ball, playing hard, finishing plays. That's a testament to the coaching staff.
Yep. Okay.
Where you don't see teams that, they and really, hey, if this team turns out to be a 10-11 win season this year, you might not see the same thing in preseason next year. Have established that identity.
Yeah.
But they're still in the process of trying to establish one.
Right. No, I'd love it if Caleb played the half dozen snaps next preseason, and instead they let Tyson Bagent demonstrate to the league that he's worthy of a first or second round draft pick in a trade. And I'm not saying trade Tyson Bagent now. He's the backup quarterback, and he should be the backup quarterback for the entire season. But you got to start thinking about
2 more years, this year, next year, and then.
But Greg,
next year, I think
if you got offered a second rounder for Tyson Bagent prior to the 2025 draft, would you consider it? Yeah.
You have to.
You got to consider it. Absolutely.
I don't know
you got to look at the board and make decisions.
But at the same time, it's not that easy. You're a snap away from losing your quarterback.
Absolutely.
You better have somebody good.
I'm here
and
with you.
He is not. I'm going to say unless he goes downhill, he isn't going to be here more than 4 years.
Yeah,
he's going to want to play.
Yeah, he's got high hopes, and he's the type that he's not going to give up until he accomplishes his goals. So good for him, and good for the Bears for signing him.
And I think that's one of the reasons they kept Reed is because Ripton's 28 years old. He's not going to get any better. He is what he is. He's got average arm strength, average mobility. He's been in the league for a number of years. This is 6th year in the league. He isn't going anywhere. Yeah. Okay. Where the other guy, I remember I did tape last year. It was in the preseason. So it was 2022 tape, for one of the agents I work for. And I thought he was a mid-round pick based on that tape, that type of talent. So, I didn't do anything on him during the year. They didn't ask me, I only do what they asked me to do. So I don't know how he played last year as compared to the year before. But from what I saw from 22, he's got talent. And just from watching him, on Hard Knocks, that's the one thing good about Hard Knocks, because you're seeing things that, we wouldn't normally see. I just like his talent.
Yeah, I do too.
I like his whole persona, put it that way.
Let's leave the show with your thoughts on Hard Knocks this season. Have you enjoyed it? Let me compare it to the Giants one. Have you enjoyed it more than the Giants one, or less, or about the same?
Well, that's a great question, because it's really two separate things. What they did with the Giants was the first, and I thought that was outstanding.
Yeah,
because it took you through a lot of the off-season process that until they showed that, very few really knew exactly how things work.
Yes.
And so from that standpoint, I would say, the Giants was better. They opened up to how they're doing things at Hallis Hall this year. They always try to find a coach to really show a lot of, and they really did too. Morton and the special teams coach. Obviously, Flus. Probably did more on Flus than I've done with most head coaches. A lot. There's some that you very rarely see the GM when you do the tree, and there's been a lot on the GM.
Yes.
The one thing I don't, people want to say, "Oh, there's no swearing." So what? Did that bother you? No.
I can say
this.
It bothers me a little. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it bothers me a little bit because it feels like it's censored as opposed to previous Hard Knocks. I mean, a million times better than I do, the F word is prominent in locker rooms, right? And so for it totally to be missing on the show, it feels a little like, okay, what are we? Disney
now this is where I'm going to come in. When I was there, first of all, you never swore in front of a McCaskey.
That would make sense.
Brian, you could, but Michael, Mrs. McCaskey, whatever, you never swore. I never swore in front of Jerry.
Oh, really?
Jerry doesn't swear.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So out of respect for Jerry. Now, would I let a few 4-letter words out? Yeah, sometimes they slip. But it wasn't like it was part of the conversation.
Uh-huh.
And I would say, as a whole, when you go through like my scouting meetings and stuff, average.
Okay.
Not overboard. Now go downstairs and you go in the weight room when Olin was in there. Now that's a different story.
Get the F out of my locker room, Gabriel.
That's right. No, I mean, it's like, every other. In fact, I said to Jason McKee jokingly, and Friday night, I might go see Carmel play because Jason's the head coach, Olin's the offensive line coach, Rasheed Davis is the offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
They won 62-3 on Friday night in their opener for this year, and I sent Jason that's pretty good, 63. He said we could have had 100. We let up. So he's got a good team. But I said, you're at a Catholic school. How do you harness Olin? He said, we don't. Olin's got to be Olin.
Yeah. I subscribe to that theory too. Yeah, you have to be careful around certain people. You don't want to make them feel uncomfortable in any way. But there are certain people who, in order for them to operate, they need to let out some F-bombs, and you kind of forgive and forget. All right, that is our show. I will remind people that tomorrow after Hard Knocks, I will be back here. Greg and I will be back here Monday talking about the Bears win over the Titans. You want a prediction, a score, or anything, Greg? You want to make one? You're not a
win.
Prediction guy. Yeah. Are you going to bet on the game?
It's we're going to win. Feel good about it. Going to have decent weather. Not going to be too hot, and we'll go from there. I just make as few mistakes as possible, keep everybody healthy, and win the game.
Yep.
Make everybody go home. Everybody when they leave Soldier Field, go home with a feel good, and the same with the players and the coaching staff and the front office. Come out of that game with a feel good.
I love that sentiment. Absolutely. All right. So hopefully we'll be back here next Monday with that happy feeling that Greg just described. It'll rub off on all of us Bears fans. For Greg Gabriel, I'm Aldo Gandia. This has been GTF. Gabriel Talks Football. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.